Drafted into the Navy in September of 1943, 19-year-old Robert Kirk, also known as the Old Buckeye Boy, headed out to the Great Lakes for basic training. After extensive initial training, Robert sailed to Florida, where he would encounter his new home, the USS Piedmont, and the ecstatic crew he would be living with for over the next 2 years. Robert's development took him from the Great Lakes to Pearl Harbor and through the Pacific on the way to Japan.
Robert Kirk began his military journey on the USS Piedmont as a ship repairman who toiled away endless amounts of hours aboard ships in long harbors, repairing 40 to 50 ships per raid for the United States Navy. One of his hardest duties was burying the dead. Soldiers had to take time to commemorate those who died in battle as they continued on the fight. Whether he was sailing on a ship or wading through the muddy Pacific Islands, Robert Kirk received the duty of retiring the dead in his division. With all their hardships, a great welcome was expected, but it was never found. They received a cold welcome after retirement from their divisions. All around the United States, veterans returned home to harsh conditions and little recognition.
But then, like I say, after raid, wherever, then I don't know who picked out the place. It'd be some bunch of islands, it'd be an inlet in there, and then there'd be a big bay enough to get 40, 50 ships in there. And then at night, they would string a subnet across where a submarine can sneak in and get a bunch of them.
Smart.
Huh. Wow.
Because like I said, just like all them ships there, sometimes you only had maybe 3 or 4 days to get all them repairs done till there was another raid coming up someplace.
Wow.
I've so many times, 3 days, my head never hit a pillow.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
hey, you had a job to do, you done it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it wasn't only me, it was everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, hey, it had to be done. Okay, they had what they called burial at sea. Because we're out there in 120 degrees. So you can't keep a body but very little bit. So the canvas shop, they would sew up a white canvas bag. In the bottom of it, they'd sew a piece of steel. Slip the body in and sew it up. And then like your life rails, they had a piece of plywood. It's set up there with 2 clips on it. They put the American flag around them. And that's my job.
Wow.
Hold on that flag, and when the bugler played taps,
All of a
but
sudden.
when we got in Cincinnati, that's what thrilled me to death when we got into Dayton. We got in Cincinnati, there was 3 people in the train station.
3.
Glad to see you home.
Kirk was a precursor to the Navy SEALs. He had a job to locate significant portions of Japanese armaments on Iwo Jima so that the U.S. military could destroy them.
Well, we were what we call special forces. There was 4 of us. There was only 6 people aboard our ship knew anything about it. Artie Tatum, Brooklyn, New York, Bill Holcomb, Atlanta, Georgia, Phil Nagel, Baltimore, Maryland, and me, the Old Buckeye Boy.
Wow.
God, boy.
The captain and our division officer went and trained. We trained every night for 2 hours down in the torpedo room.
What were you guys training for?
Hmm?
What were you guys train for?
Anything it needed to be. See, they couldn't, couldn't get things going on Iwo Jima, so we were supposed to sneak around the back of the island and go up and put a beeper on there where they could home in on it. And they gave us 3 days. We couldn't have our 45. All we had was hand grenades. So we experimented with them down in the torpedo room. We took the firing mechanism out of it. So you take electrician tape, like you pull the pin, this lever's there. So you electrician tape, not lap it over and see how long it sprung loose. Well, we didn't consider, see the Japanese, they dig in.
Yeah.
They got tunnels. God, they got tunnels.
That's
So
why.
we got up on the back side of the island, got in, and got a hold of 4 or 5 where we could get some uniforms to match the Japanese. And you hunker down because they're short. So we slipped.
So you dressed up in their uniforms.
Oh, yes.
And went into the tunnels.
And did your best then to act like them so
Right.
that you wouldn't get.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And so we started back in the caves. And so the way we communicated was like, remember the old crickets they used to have? The
Yeah,
click,
the
click?
lighters. Yeah.
That's how we communicated.
Morse code.
1 click meant something, 2 meant something.
Ah.
And we'd go back in the tunnel and figure it out. Then we had to come out before daylight, climb up a coconut tree or a palm tree, tie ourselves up there where we wouldn't fall out till night. Then we'd go again. When we finally decided where we were going to put the hand grenades on the 3rd night, why, we scattered them around through and got back over. We had a little raft folded up about that big a square. So here we are in Japanese gear going back out about 3 miles of the ship, and about that time they said, "Prepare to fire." We, "Oh."
Friendly fire.
So we supposed to plant this beeper. Well, we didn't. And so we thought before we got back to ship, the tunnel should have blown. But we didn't consider in that tunnel it wasn't as hot as it was aboard ship. So we went up the gangway, and the old captain we had about my side. "Where in the hell's that beeper?" "Right here." "Why in the hell did you plant it?" I said, "Well, we planted something else, and about that time, that island just blew up." Damn good job, fellas. Excuse my language, guys.
We'll edit it.
So the thing about Iwo Jima is that it was a very rocky terrain. So what the Japanese did to defend against the Americans was that they would build underground tunnels, and when the Americans who got access to them, they would use this unit in the Navy called the Seabees, which would blow up the entrances of these tunnels so that the Japanese could not shoot behind them. And something that Charles Baker talked about was that that out of the 257 men that he came with, only 27 of them made it out. And a thing about Iwo Jima is that more Americans faced casualties than the Japanese did during that battle.
During the whole battle of the 32 days that we were there, our company, we landed with 257, and after 36 days, there was only 27 of us left. The rest were either killed or wounded. There was 20,000 Marines in each division, so there were 40,000 Marines there, and the Japanese had about 40,000 Japanese on the island. And we couldn't take any prisoners because they'd commit suicide before we'd capture them.
Oh, wow.
And they had tunnels. You probably read about that. They had tunnels and caves all the way through the island. And as we took ground, the Seabees followed us up and would blow the demolition, and they'd blow the cave entrances shut so they couldn't come out behind us.
So after the defeat of the Japanese by the Allied forces in World War II, The United States actually had occupation of the Japanese state for 7 years. Baker talks about staying there for around 6 months, and he said at first the Japanese people didn't trust the Americans because their government before talked about how they would rape and beat and torture all the women and children that were Japanese, but that was like the complete opposite of what actually happened. General Douglas MacArthur actually was the spearhead in enacting widespread military, political, economic, and social reforms in the Japanese state.
The island, all the people had left the city at Sasebo, and they told we'd torture them and kill them and so forth, and that we wouldn't take care of them. But as they knew, and as the war was over, and as they started drifting back into the city, we gave them food, we helped them out, we helped them get back, and so forth, and then we left there in Hawaii for the invasion of Japan, and on the way they dropped the atomic bomb, and of course the war was over then, but I spent 6 months in Japan on occupation.
Can you tell us what that was like?
Huh?
Can you tell us what that was like, occupying Japan?
When we landed there at Sasebo, if you look at your map or anything, you'll see the island. I mean, you've probably heard of it, or even maybe already. But Sasebo, we landed there, and like I say, I was there 6 months. But as we went through at Sasebo and got up to Nagasaki, where they had dropped one of the bombs, the napalm and the gases from the bomb were on the ground. They told us just don't get out on the ground for a while, maybe 6 weeks after we could go do that. But we went up to Sasebo then, and we took and occupied that. And we had Japanese, and we had work parties that they would have them, and they'd destroy all their war weapons. And then after we got that done, we came back to Hawaii, and then I got discharged. I had a machine gun. One time we were moving up, and I had the machine gun, and I'm running with a machine gun.
How big is the machine gun?
Huh?
How big?
It's 30 caliber,
Okay.
air cooled, and I was running, and I saw this rock in front of me. I didn't want to step on it, and I'm running. I actually stepped on it, and it threw me to the ground. And I no sooner hit the ground, and machine gun fire went right over me and didn't touch me. And I always said, the good Lord put that stone there to save my life.
I'll be done.
Yeah. How did you guys eat on the island during all this fighting? 'Cause
Back then we had K rations and C rations. Today they got all kinds of stuff, you know, you can eat. But back then we had K rations, and I always looked at a K ration was like a Cracker Jack box. And it would have a little can of Spam in it and some hard crackers, and that was about it. The two things, the hard biscuits, crackers, more likely. But then it had a can of Spam, and that was like a Cracker Jack box, about the same size. And then we had C rations, and the C rations was cans of fruit, a can of vegetables, and so forth. And we'd take a wire and wrap around them, and to heat them, we'd build a little fire, and then we'd hold them over the fire until they got warm, and then cut them open and then eat them.